I'd love to welcome our speakers up onto the stage. We've got Ayesha Pakravan, who's the founder of the Plattery, and last year launched Vital Meals Tackling Food Poverty. Here she is.
Hi.
Hi, Ayesha, welcome. And we've also got Hannah Adams, who's the founder of Pieces of the Puzzle, an eco-friendly wellbeing first puzzle company launched in lockdown. Here she is. Welcome, Hannah. And finally, we have Roshan Dorset, who's the founder of the Glossary, an early-stage skincare startup using the nutritious ingredients in their products. And Roshan is walking up the stairs and will join us any second. Here she is.
Hi.
I tell you what, that was slick.
That was
sick. You even came up in order as I was introducing you. The audience is like that. Yeah, this is Oscar level of production.
They might have rehearsed it.
They might have rehearsed it, not much. It's lovely to see you all. Thanks for joining us. We've got hardly anyone listening into our conversation tonight. So it's just the four of us, $600. But that's a great opportunity to share our stories. So you've all done something really impressive in the last year. I'm sure you've done many impressive things before that, but especially in the last year. And we'd like to hear your personal journeys and what you've brought into the world and where you're up to. So to start with, I'd love you to go back to that moment that led to what you're doing now. What was the moment that led you to say, I'm going to start something? And you can go back to the thing before what you're doing now, if it makes sense. And tell us the journey. And Hannah, if I can start with you, where did this begin?
Yeah, so my kind of journey into entrepreneurship actually started back in 2017, which was when I received the funding from Virgin StartUp for my first business, which was Naked Dough, which is a cookie dough shop. That's still going. It's coming up to 4 years now. And up until lockdown, it was we had a retail store in Camden. It was doing really well. We had an online store, but it was probably about 5 to 10% of our sales. And then lockdown happened, and we became a fully online business. And thankfully, we were able to transfer our business completely online. And on the side of that, I'm kind of addicted to starting businesses. And we were given a jigsaw puzzle for Christmas, which was a Harry Potter jigsaw. It was wrapped in shrink wrap. The puzzle pieces came in a plastic bag. And I was doing the jigsaw whilst everything else was going on. As COVID started to become a thing, business became quite stressful. We didn't know what was going on. And I found this moment where doing a jigsaw was thoroughly enjoying. It was such a mindful activity for me. But looking at other jigsaws out there, I couldn't find anything that I thoroughly wanted to do, enjoyed to do. I like art. And I thought there's a gap in the market for a plastic-free jigsaw brand, where the art and the design is so stunning that you would put it on your wall.
When you had that, sorry, Hannah, jump in. When you had that aha moment, was Naked Dough still in business? What stage were you at with it?
Yeah, so Naked Dough was in business. So we were, but I guess it was quite quiet. It was January and February where, it's rainy. Camden Market is an outside market. So we're seeing less sales because of everyone on a diet in January and less tourists. So I guess I did have more time, but then and I also had my wedding. I got married in February. So there was quite a lot going on. But also this whole thing around COVID and, it becoming more of a thing, us realizing, if lockdown does happen, there's no way there's going to be tourists in summer. So we needed to think quickly. And actually we decided to fully invest in online. And that was when I started getting samples for the jigsaws. And I was just about to order the first lot of jigsaws, and we went into lockdown, and the supplier said, it's going to be at least 6 weeks now before you get your product.
So was this the first lockdown in March 2020?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I fully.
You were anticipating this. I mean, it may be obvious now, but you really were anticipating the need well, and you had that insight around the jigsaw really before the idea of a lockdown was a real thing.
Yeah, so the idea around starting a puzzle business was when I started doing the Harry Potter jigsaw back in January. But then it took a while for me to do it. And it kind of happened whilst everything was going on, and it felt so right to actually dedicate and commit time and money to it, that when I actually came to order, it was slightly too late. And, I'm kicking myself now. But at the end of the day, we still managed to launch. I launched in June. My co-founder came on board in August, and Christmas came, and we did really well. And yeah, so it's a thriving business. I'm so lucky that I have two businesses running side by side, and I'm able to do both quite easily.
Dough and puzzles, it's an unlikely pairing, but it's brilliant. Two quick questions. I'll come on to Roshan's story next. One, how did you find your co-founder? And two, how did you figure out that supply chain? Because you're going for something that hadn't been perhaps done before. It's certainly in the puzzle world, making it plastic free. Were those the two biggest challenges you faced? How did you solve them?
I was quite lucky that I knew my co-founder. She's called Daphne, and she actually lives in Florida. So we're 4,000 miles apart, but we've managed to make it work. You know, it kind of works really well. I work on naked dough in the day, and then I work on pieces of puzzle in the evening when she's active online. So we work together, we're on Slack, we're constantly talking. And the reason she came on board actually was because I was maybe having a slight crisis in that I was taking on a business by myself running up to Christmas, and I was speaking to her about it. And she was like, this just sounds like an amazing opportunity, like an adult puzzle brand that's modern and stunning. And we can work with, artists, female artists, because I was commissioning artists at the time as well. So yeah, she came on board and it's worked really well. She does all the social media, I do all the logistics. So yeah, it's great. Your second question, what was it again?
So around the actual setting up the product and the supply chain, was that obviously you got held back in March. How did you figure it out? And how did you do it without spending a lot of money?
So I think it goes back to what Andy was saying about, profit, but also with purpose. It was quite good that at the time when I was launching the business, I wanted it to do good for the planet and for people. So I knew I wanted it to be made in Britain and plastic free. So the first thing I did was just contact Google. Google is your friend. And I contacted every jigsaw manufacturer I could in the UK. And initially I actually launched the product not in a box. It was in a fair trade cotton bag, because I like the idea that you could fit the bag in a letterbox friendly e-commerce box. So it was really cheap to send. But then obviously as we came up to Christmas, I realized that I wanted to do something that was a bit more special and you could gift it. So that's when I went into boxes. So I use a different manufacturer for those. There have been issues with the fact that it is plastic free because they aren't shrink wrapped. It means that they can get damaged much more easily. But I feel like that's a fair trade-off for a product that's good for the planet. And you know what? It works really well. The products that are slightly damaged, we actually sell them at a discounted price, and people do buy them. The campaign is around imperfect boxes but perfect jigsaws. Because at the end of the day, it's still a jigsaw. People can still enjoy the product. It's just the box that's slightly damaged. And that's actually been such a great opportunity for us.
Yeah, and as soon as it gets to someone's house, a dog or a baby is going to chew it anyway. So, I'd take one of those for sure. What I love about your business, Hannah, and idea is it sounds so obvious, right? It's one of those things. It's a sign of a good business. Is like, oh, why didn't puzzles and games exist without plastic that were basically designed for a more, an adult audience? And it's one of the things, it's one of our pet hates is like, presents, like we're really always trying to be really careful about it, but you can't control it all. And so you want to recommend brands to friends and all of this. So a win. And we've got more to ask you on that, but let's come to Roshan next. Tell us about when your startup journey began.
Yeah, so I think my entrepreneur journey kind of began back in 2012, but I didn't actually know that was what it was called. I started making my own natural skincare products, and it was because I was getting allergic reactions to some of the products that you buy in your local beauty stores. So I wanted to try and strip it back and use as the most natural ingredients as possible. So that's how I started making lip balms, body oils, face oils, and then that kind of hobby progressed into wanting to learn more professional skills. So I took on a natural and organic skincare course. So I am now a certified natural skincare formulator. And I think the actual push to do it, before I launched the glossary, I was actually working at Amazon. I was working in their bookmaking department. And for 4 days a week, every day, 4 days a week, 10 hours a day, I was just in this factory, no fresh air, no light, and I was coming home and my skin felt gross. Like I just felt like there was all paper dust on me, and I thought, well, how could I create something that aligns with my values as a vegan? I've been vegan for 3 years now, and kind of incorporate that with my skills as a natural skincare formulator. So that's kind of how the glossary manifested, the idea that within our products we use fresh fruit vegetable ingredients. So we use cold pressed oils, and they maintain the high therapeutic benefits than refined oils. They get more benefits using the products, and it's going really well. So I launched it in March 2020. Yes,
almost a year
ago, and it's just really exciting. We've won awards. We won a best women's health beauty award for best facial oil of 2020. I kind of like the idea that I've kind of taken something that is important to me, my like vegan lifestyle, and incorporated it into a beauty brand. So, not only are they nutritious for your skin, we also consider the sustainability element. Like we have Clean Greens, which is our hero product. It also comes in like a refillable option, so you're not.
What's it called again? Your hero product?
Clean Greens. It's a super.
Clean Greens.
Yeah, it's a superfood. I've actually got it here.
Yeah, of course you have. Show it off.
Of course, and then it comes in a refill option, so you can reuse the plastic dropper, so it's not as much plastic waste as if you're buying a new dropper every time. So it's kind of like eliminating that.
There's so much to dig into here, Roshan. First of all, my first reflection is that your overnight success, which I know is not what it feels like to you, but it looks like from the outside, or suddenly the glossary, cool brand, great products, winning awards, confident, passionate entrepreneur leading it. But there's, at least 6 to 10 years of experimenting, exploration, so all these overnight successes, and you're only just beginning, right, on the business journey.
Exactly.
There's always a big, so the sooner you start playing with the things you're curious about. I also want to talk to you about Amazon, because that's
Amazon was
but that's not for tonight. That's not for tonight.
Amazon was an experience,
because it's kind of shaped our world in many ways, good and bad, right? But not doesn't do well when we're talking about the climate or social work conditions.
Exactly.
But anyway, we won't focus on that tonight. We'll come back to more on the glossary. But next up, Ayesha, tell us about your startup journey.
So my startup journey started pretty much August 2019. I had decided that I was going to start a catering company. I was working as an estate agent, so it was a huge change for me. But I'm a massive foodie would be an understatement. I think I'm actually borderline obsessed with food. So having worked as an estate agent, I then decided the time has come to start a catering business, just cook, just do something different. So slightly on a whim, I applied for Virgin StartUp. I kind of had an idea in my head and I thought, well, might as well give it a go and see what happens. And then before I knew it, I had, the loan had come through and I had the approval. And I think, Hannah, Roshan, you might agree that when you get that sort of confidence from Virgin and they say, yes, off you go, start your business, you kind of suddenly think, oh God, I've got to do this now. So I sort of just jumped off the edge, started my business, the Plattery, and we had been going for about 6 months before kind of COVID really came into play. So first 6 months of trading were really good. I'd catered for Facebook. I'd catered for London Fashion Week twice. So I did the breakfast for the models. And I'd also catered for Virgin. So we'd had cooked for some pretty cool people. And then what happened in March of 2020, obviously everybody knows COVID. But I had a pretty massive pivot. So I pivoted away from the Plattery. The product that we were creating was kind of grazing tables, picnic platters, sort of event catering stuff. And I took that sort of model of cooking and feeding people, and I effectively started a not-for-profit. So I started a food charity. I didn't really mean to start what I've started. I just wanted to help some people initially. And I thought, well, all my business has been cancelled, so I might as well see if some neighbours want some food or see if anybody needs some help. And what ended up happening was I started an initiative called Vital Meals. And I went from providing 10 meals a day from my home, from this kitchen, to 1,000 meals a week. And since last March, we've done about 25,000 meals. And so I now run the Plattery with the purpose of profits from the sales of the Plattery now go back into Vital Meals, and we continue to provide 600 to 1,000 free meals a week for people who, for whatever reason, can't feed themselves in London.
There you go. There are 600 people cheering for you, not just you, Ayesha, but Roshan and Hannah as well, for bringing purpose and impact as well as starting something, because it sounds like you just double up your workload. Can we just drill into those numbers a little bit, Ayesha? So
Sure.
you have that blockage on the Plattery. You've done the hard work to get it going. COVID comes, shuts it down for a period. You go, hold on, there's some food waste here. Could we do something purposeful with it? You cook 10 meals. Like, I get that. How'd you go from 10 to 1,000? What happened there? And what did you do to make that step up?
I mean, I actually have to say I asked myself that quite a lot. I started posting on social media, if I'm being totally honest. I've never really firsthand seen the power of social media until I just put effectively what was a call out. I just said, if anybody needs some food, I have food. I'm a chef. I've got nowhere else to put my food, so let me help. And just through sharing, just through sending messages on mutual aid groups, I'm sure lots of different people will know that their local community has a mutual aid group. Just by putting the message out there, the response was overwhelming. I think it was also at a time when the panic buying was really bad. So I started Vital Meals on the 18th of March, and that was when you would go to the supermarket and there would be absolutely nothing there. So it was quite a desperate time. And I think I just happened to be, able to help at the right time when people were really needed it. So it spitballed. And then I was lucky enough that local newspapers and some local radio stations picked it up and helped kind of spread the word. And then it really just gained momentum by itself. And before I knew it, we were doing 1,000 meals a week.
Yeah. And you were serving people who were suffering. And what was the business model for this? Was it just donations, or how did it work?
So initially I took whatever remaining profits I had from the Plattery from 2019, and I put that money into Vital Meals. And I also put a little bit of my own personal money in to get it off the ground. After about a month, I realized that it wasn't going to stop, and it wasn't going to calm down. And actually we needed some serious money. So then we started a fundraising drive. And so far I've raised £35,000 for Vital Meals. And it costs about £1 a meal to send out. So that sort of gives you a gauge of how much it costs to run Vital Meals for a year. But yeah, initially it was self-funded, and then it's pretty much only been funded through the generosity of lovely strangers and kind people. Yeah,
but you've proved that you can do it, which is why people are backing you. And is it with the Plattery now? As we hopefully come out of COVID and return to some kind of normal, and a demand for the Plattery increases again? Do you plan to pitch the model more as, for every Plattery we will be able to deliver X number of meals, or are you going to keep them a bit more arm's length?
No, they're good. They hold each other's hands now. So I was, up until the end of last year, so up until December, saying all profits are going back into Vital Meals, because I just needed to make sure that everybody got their food. And now that we kind of slightly have a little bit more of a roadmap about what maybe things might be looking like at the end of this year, and you can maybe plan a little bit more about what your business is going to be doing. Now we say that every platter that we sell, because we changed our product now, so we sell smaller packaged platters. So every platter that we sell provides 15 free meals for somebody else. So the idea is you can eat well and do good. That's kind of our model. It's a brilliant and simple message to communicate. And we've seen the one-for-one message being used, but also abused, right, over the years, really effectively in terms of positive impact, but also a bit of, I don't know what you call greenwashing, social washing, one-for-one washing, whatever you want to call it. But you're proving it, and it's great. You've it's the best way to spread a story when you have that kind of impact. There's a question here. There's a bunch of questions already coming in from people. And so I want to just throw these out to the three of you. Just jump in, pick it up, and we can have a conversation around them. So Becky is asking around mentorship. So all of you sound, I'm hearing your stories for the first time, and I'm sure for the audience as well. You sound like you knew exactly what you were going to do next, right? Well, I did this. I thought about, is there plastic in this puzzle? And then I got on Google, and then it seems very clear and confident, your steps. But I know that this is not true. So in certainly in my experience of doing this. So was there someone helping you, guide you through these decisions? Because at every juncture you have 5, 10, 20 different ways you can go, and you can only work on one or two things at once, right? So
how have you made your decisions, especially in the last year during COVID, when it's been so many variables and so many unknowns? Have you had a guide, or has it been pure instinct? What's helped you make the decisions?
So I have somebody called Michael. He's a friend of mine, but he's also an entrepreneur. He runs his own businesses and he's very successful. He helps me when it gets all too much, and I think, oh my God, I've got 25 ideas running around my brain and I can't process them all. So I spitball with him. But I would say in terms of making decisions and making the next move, you can always seek advice and you can always speak to other people, but ultimately you're the one that's going to know the best next step. And sometimes the best next step may not be what 100% seems the right one or the most straightforward. A lot of people have said to me, why did you started giving away product for free? That doesn't necessarily make business sense, but it's the right thing to do. So I would say that you have to know your own mind when seeking advice, because advice can be helpful, but it can, if you're, you don't want to get strayed off the path. So it's a fine balance between seeking advice, but then also sitting yourself down and thinking, right, we've got ourselves to this point. What are we going to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Hannah or Shan?
Yeah, I would definitely echo what Ayesha said as well. I mean, I think I'd built myself up. I'd attended the, Virgin Start. I've done a lot of masterclasses. I felt like I'd attended all the masterclasses. I'd built up my skills to a certain point, and it was kind of like, okay, so now's the time that I stop talking about it and actually doing it. And as Ayesha said, you just have to trust your intuition. I mean, there's a lot of opinions out there about how you should run your business, but ultimately it is down to you and how you want to define success on your own terms, really. So there's times when I think I do annoy my mum and my sister with, like, I'm testing formulations on them, about 15 formulations a week, like, what do you think of this, what's the smell on this? But ultimately the biggest decision lies with myself and just being confident in my abilities and confident in what I can create.
That reminds me of a great trap, and I'm sure your mum and your sister, they may even be listening in now, watching it now, are fantastic at giving you positive feedback. But there is a trap around asking people who are close to us, who love us, about what they think about our ideas, because they'll either respond in one or two ways. I don't know about your family, Rashan, but they'll either say, "Oh, this is the best scent I've ever smelled," or like, "This is terrible," or like, "What are you doing? Like, this is." I much prefer the other one.
Yeah, but very hard. They're very straight down the line, which can be a bit of a punch to the ego. But sometimes you have to put that aside. Like, okay,
right. So you get the tough love response.
Oh yeah, I get the tough love. Very straight down the line. Like, they just tell me how it is. No, I don't like the feel of that. You need to try it again. I don't think it's quite there. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I've just spent a good couple of weeks working on this. I thought it was there, but it's not. Let's try again.
And you're like, you haven't even paid for this stuff. You're getting it for free anyway.
Exactly.
Unbelievable. Exactly. But no, there's an important point there. Whereas if we ask our people, people who love us, who are invested in us emotionally, they're probably not going to give us the best data, because they're biased, right? They have their biases. So it's good for that kind of support. And it sounds like you have two people there who are really good at it. But I would say, like, be cautious, but it is our instinct to ask people close, what do you think? Because you want that confidence boost. But don't take their emotional positivity, but not necessarily their data.
Exactly. Yeah.
What about you, Hannah?
Yeah, I guess to add to that, like, somewhere we often ask our customers, on Instagram. We do polls, which has kind of sways us depending on what they do and what they say. But yeah, I again, the same. If there's something I want to know, I Google it and I learn about it from different sources. There are so many good social media consultants out there providing free advice through their own social media channels and websites. I think what massively helped pieces of the puzzle was the fact that I had learned a lot of the mistakes through my first business. So I knew what worked well and what didn't work well for a product-based business. I think one of the things that has worked really well has been influencer marketing. So our kind of key pillars of pieces of the puzzle is made in Britain, plastic-free, female-founded. So when I first started out, I had 50 to 100 followers, maybe a few more. But I reached out to quite big influencers and pushed this kind of this story, this hook. That's what you talk about when you're doing a press release, the hook. But I basically just talked about these three things. Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm the founder of a jigsaw company. You know, we're meant to be mindful. It's plastic free. Would you like a sample? No obligation to post about it. And literally everyone I messaged said, that's such a great idea. I love that concept. Yeah, sure. And then I'd send them one, and then you know, they would all share content. I had a promo code ready. So then if they posted about it, I'd be like, thank you so much for posting about my product. Would you mind sharing this promo code with your followers? And they get 10% off. And I instantly got sales and followers through that. That was a massive growth for us at the very beginning. And then my second thing was looking at different channels to sell the product. I was very, very small when I first started out. So I really wanted to look at other ways, other places we could sell. So I applied to Not on the High Street. I sell through Wolf and Badger, Worth. I started Etsy, but that's not gone very well. And then I just contacted hundreds of independent stockists, again with the 3 messages about our brand, and paid for photography. And we got into about 12 stockists for Christmas, and one of them has ordered 4 times. So it's been incredible, just learning from the first business and then applying it to this one straight away, and we're already seeing results.
Well, it's so brilliant. And so you make it sound simple, but it's just excellent execution, which all 3 of you've done. So the 2 things that I'm hearing around this in terms of how do you make good decisions, how do you get guidance, whether it's through a mentorship or like decide what to do next. And the 2 things that seem to be like similar through all your stories are, one, your purpose for existence is super clear. And that actually helps with so much decision making. You're like, does this fit why we exist? And it's yes or no, right? There's very rarely something in the middle. So that helps with prioritization. And the second thing is you're gathering data all the time because you're digital. So you're like, okay, did people buy it? Did people talk about it? Did people come back? And that immediately helps shape what you do next, right?
Yeah.
Versus all the opinion-based feedback. So that's really helpful. Now, we want to talk money, or Sarah does. Sarah says, how did the panelists manage their personal financial responsibilities whilst taking their first steps in setting up their business? So we all know this is a juggle. So it'd be great to hear how you managed it and what helped you.
So
Ayesha, go ahead, and then we'll go around.
So when I first took the Virgin StartUp loan, I just saved. I kind of thought to myself, right, I work in like 3 to 6 monthly increments, and I basically saved my rent and then a estimation of how much money I would need to live and be in London and also not have to, make too many cuts. I think it's being sensible. You can say, oh, I'm going to live off this small amount, but actually realistically, you need to be realistic with yourself about the cuts you will and won't make. So I worked, because I was an estate agent, so I worked, put money aside, then went for it. And then when I started Vital Meals, which was during COVID, so March of last year, that time I actually didn't, because it was completely not for profit, I haven't taken a salary from Vital Meals. And I don't know if that's something I would advise actually in hindsight. I think that I would advise always protecting yourself and putting your finances first. So I think when you start a business, Rashan, Hannah, I don't know if you guys agree, it feels so weird taking money from this tiny baby thing that you're trying to grow, and you don't want to take the money away from it, but actually your finances are so important. So actually protecting yourself and making sure that you're still paying yourself for the time that you're putting in and the effort that you're putting in, I would say is quite important.
Yeah, I think that's a great insight. Hannah.
Yeah, so I had savings as well when I first started Naked Dough, and we also had the Virgin StartUp loan. And initially Naked Dough was meant to be a 3-week pop-up, and it ended up being a 6-month pop-up because it did so well. They asked us to stay on, and luckily from that, we managed to open additional stores. And then with Pieces of the Puzzle, I started really small. Like I was very lucky that the initial jigsaw manufacturer I worked with, I only had to order 50 jigsaws, and I did 60 jigsaws, sorry, so it's 20 of each design I started with. And then from there, it just grew and grew and grew. And then when Daphne came on board, she invested some of her money into the business, which meant that we could launch the boxes, which had a higher minimum quantity. and we ordered more of them.
Yeah, that's great. Starting a retail business where your initial orders are low, because that's often the barrier. We see it a lot at Virgin Startup. People are like, well, I need £50,000 because the minimum order is X, and you're like, that's crazy risk. And they're like, no, it's going to work. And you're like, well, it might, but you're going to be the one stuck with the loan if it doesn't. So that's it's almost like a reason to work out which products can I buy really low level, low in volume, because then you can experiment to see if they sell. So that's a really nice example. Roshan, how has managing the financial transition been for you?
Yeah, it's okay. Like I got a loan from Virgin Startup, and everything that has in terms of buying the products, packaging, has been from like my part-time job. So yeah, before I left Amazon, I did have quite a bit of money saved up, and that allowed me to buy 100 of quantity of each product. So we've got 3 products, and still now I work part-time. So the goal is to go full-time with the business by the end of this year. At the minute, I support my personal life with my part-time job. So I work in I was kind of describe it as like an African and Caribbean Tesco's. So they do like fresh mangoes, papaya, planting. So I support my personal life with that, and then the profits from the grocery, I then reinvest it into like research and development to making new products. So yeah, we're not there yet, but we'll get there.
But that's impressive. That's impressive, Roshan, because that sounds like a classically tiring job, mentally and physically. When you have days where you do feel knackered from it, how do you get yourself going? Like, how do you structure things so you're then like, right, I'm into the grocery? Is it purely from the passion for the project, or like, how do you keep yourself focused on it?
Yeah, I definitely think it comes from the passion and the enthusiasm to wanting to grow it into how I see it in the future. So I do take days that I only work 3 days a week, so that allows me to work on the grocery the other days. So it's a lot of late nights. I do sometimes think, people glamorize being an entrepreneur, and it's not always glamorous. There's a lot of sleepless nights, there's a lot of worrying, but I wanted to do this, and I know I'm going to make a success of it. So that quietens when I'm getting the self-doubt and the negativity drumming in. I'm like, okay, you can actually do this because look what you've created.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Roshan. And I think there's a couple of questions here that maybe we want to dive into the tougher bits a bit more. So when you have had your bigger doubts, or yes, okay, I'm motivated and purposeful, but what's been the hardest thing in the last year in terms of the businesses you've been running and what you've been trying to do, and how importantly have you pulled yourself out of that? So if you can put yourself back to that moment where it really felt hard, where you really thought this isn't going to work out. I've talked to a lot of people about this. I don't know if it's, what were your biggest fears in that moment, and how were you able to pull yourself out of it?
Yeah, I definitely think it was like the initial first 3 months. So I launched on the 11th of March. And then by the 23rd of March, we was in lockdown now. So I was kind of like, oh my goodness, like I've built it up for all these years to this point, kind of have it as like a pivotal moment. And then all of a sudden the world goes into like a global lockdown. And I'm thinking, why are people going to want to buy my skincare if, they've got other stuff to worry about. But how I take solace in that is that I do have a daily routine. So every day I wake up, I listen to a 10-minute mindfulness meditation, positive affirmations, I journal. When I'm feeling low, I just don't do anything. I can't put my energy into the business if I haven't built myself up to a certain point. And before, especially in the early stages, I would kick myself about that. I'd be like, you've got to keep going. Like everyone says, you've got to keep busy, you've got to keep working, but that doesn't work for me. Like I'm very prone to burnout. So I find that taking time to maybe like have a bath, maybe meditate, maybe listen to a podcast, go for a walk in nature. I know it sounds very esoteric to say that, but I do think that really does help calm me. And then in that sense, it comes like, okay, reality check. It's not the end of the world that your ingredients are 4 weeks delayed. It happens. You're just gonna have to roll with the punches, and just know that we live in a different time at the minute, and people are forgiving for delays, and you just can't beat yourself up about stuff that you can't control. I can only control my feelings, and I've got better at learning how to do that.
We are downloading some serious wisdom here at Virgin Startup tonight. I mean, these podcasts can just get out of the way. It's all here. It's all here. I mean, seriously, if I knew all that when I was at my first startup, I'd be absolutely smashing it now. It's so important, though. And I think the thing that I love I love all those things you just said, but especially was like, this is what works for me. And it's recognizing it, right? We're all different. Some people love that hustle. I'm going deeper. I'm going to get scrap away. And because you know, that's how they work. But it's not right. It's not right for anyone. It's like, where do you top yourself? How do you re-energize so you can do the work really well? How about for yourself, Hannah? What's been a low point and how do you get out of it?
I think a low point for me was when we ordered the first batch of box jigsaws, and we had ordered you know, over 300 boxes, and they had arrived, and the cotton drawstring bag that came inside the box had a nylon string draw. So as in the tie that you tied the bag was nylon. So I called and said, there's a situation here, you sent me the wrong product. They then had to send me 300 drawstring bags, and I had to individually put the jigsaw pieces into the correct bag and repackage the boxes. And that was whilst I was moving house. So I lived in London and I now live in Ashford. So I had that to deal with. And so we were getting stockist orders, but I was spending hours and hours and hours literally transferring the jigsaw pieces into the bags. And like after doing a whole order and then finding a piece on the floor was genuinely heartbreaking. The bags that obviously then were waste, you know, we didn't use in the product, they're actually being used for art supplies now. Art supplies that are being donated, they're being used to like collect those art supplies and being given to underprivileged children and asylum seekers in Kent. So that was kind of like a nice silver lining to that. The things that get me out of the low are like that, are probably my dog. Taking my dog for walks massively helps. He's a cockapoo, and I love him to bits. And other things that kind of help me are when I get like a new jigsaw and I actually do the jigsaw for the first time. It makes it worthwhile. And especially working with artists. We've just worked with Laura Goosens, who's a collage artist. She cuts out all her items by hand, and then she like arranges them and scans them in. And genuinely, it's made me so happy working with artists like her who are so passionate about her art. And then, you know, we've been able to put on a jigsaw for her. You know, we've paid her for this. But yeah, that's been amazing. I feel like things like that have just really helped to keep going and makes me want to find lots of different artists to work with. And like the collaboration side of it has been such a big thing for me. Especially in lockdown and, you know, living in a city where I don't know anyone apart from my husband. It's been really nice. Yeah.
Well, you're brilliant at reaching out to people. And I think depending on, some of us feel like, oh, we all have to be extroverts like to be a successful entrepreneur, or actually there's as much advantage now as being an introvert or further down that scale, along that scale, because you can reach out in different ways. And then we do this with authors at Rebel Book Club. You know, you've got these publishers, all these people around them, agents and so on. And now, you know, depending on which social media channel, we just message directly. And we got Seth Godin, who in the startup world is a big gun, right? And we got him to come along to our Rebel Book Club because we just found him like a way to message him directly and say, hey, and it's much more personal. So you're so good at that, Hannah. Ayesha, what's been a low point and how did you get out of it?
So I've got 2 points that I think I can probably discuss. One is more, I would say, about sort of finances, I guess, to sort of touch on what we were speaking about before. Because I sort of started a chat, you know, not-for-profit, and I was putting all my money into that, and I kind of, because it was so quick and it all happened so fast and, you know, running along behind COVID, I didn't probably plan too much in advance. So I had a month where I was looking basically at what could have been the end of everything financially. And, you know, I hadn't been paying myself. So I was, you know, all the sort of, where am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay my bills? You know, how am I going to provide food for people? We were also running cooking classes for kids at that time. So where am I going to get the ingredients? I've got orders for platters and I don't necessarily have the cash flow to buy everything in. And I remember just sitting myself down and saying to myself, just hold your nerve, because, you know, you've got yourself this far and actually you can't worry about what's going to happen next week, because we don't know what's happening next week. So all you can deal with is today's problems. So let's just kind of take it day at a time. And I just said to myself, just wait, you've got until the end of the month. So just see what happens. And, you know, I'm still here. And we got to the end of the month and I had an amazing surge of donations and things turned around, and, you know, I was booked for more cooking classes and a year later. So hold your nerve would be one thing I say to myself a lot, just don't panic. And then another example of when it kind of probably went all a little bit wrong was at the end of December. So I was lucky enough to do a couple of large Christmas parties. So for Virgin, I catered, and we sent, you know, like 350 platters out to loads of different addresses. Not for Virgin, but for other sort of direct to consumer products that we were selling, we were reliant on our courier company. And I don't know if most of you probably know that, you know, at Christmas, the surge of all these boxes going through Royal Mail, and then, you know, it was Christmas and it was cold and everything went wrong. And our product is 24 hours and it perishes because it's completely fresh. So if there are delays, that's it. And effectively, my courier company called me and said, we can't honor any more bookings. And we had like 150 that were due to go out in the next week. And they said, that's it. We can't do it. We can't deliver your platters. So I had to individually go around every single client that had ordered food for Christmas, right up until Christmas Eve, and say, I'm really sorry, but your food isn't coming. And for me, I thought, oh my God, this is the end of, you know, this is it. This is how it ends. And pretty much everybody I spoke to said, it's not your fault. We'll take a voucher instead. And we just moved that business to January. And I was honestly overwhelmed and reduced to tears by how understanding customers were if you're honest and you really just explain what's happened. And yeah, I think we probably only lost out on about 30, 40 orders, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that bad. And everybody else was happy to take a voucher. And for me, that's the biggest lesson I could have learned, is to have a little faith. Yeah,
there's a great lessons, Ayesha. And I think that something we've seen a lot more of this year is the goodwill towards small business and startups. One, to try new products and services, go local, more sustainable, more purposeful, all of that. But also to forgive if you do exactly what you just did, because everyone knows it's hard. It's hard enough anyway when you're running a small business, let alone in COVID and a pandemic and everything else. So much great stuff you shared. Thank you, all of you. We're going to do one more round of questions. I want to talk tech briefly. And if there's any more questions that people have in the chat, there have been lots, but anyone else wants to say something quickly, ask a quick question, do so. And then in about 5 minutes, we're going to go into these breakout rooms and you can talk to each other or talk to mentors. So technology, we're making puzzles, we're making natural skincare products, we're making food. Like, this isn't tech, right? But you have all used tech to build your businesses, to sell and market and deliver everything you're doing. How have you figured out the technology pieces? What have you done? And what's your favorite tool that's really helped you? Roshan.
I would say favorite tool at the minute is Instagram. I think we use quite a lot of beauty influencers, as what Hannah mentioned before. And I think because beauty is quite a visual product, I think the using the right products in our packaging just really helps with user-generated content. So that's how, you know, I've been able to build the glossary. Basically, is just through Instagram and through PR. I work with an amazing PR agency called Lima Comms, and they get my products in front of influencers, beauty editors, who then share it on Instagram, who then refer it to their friends. So I definitely say Instagram is my favorite.
Nice. And is your online shop, what's that built on?
That's on Shopify.
It's on Shopify.
And I picked Shopify because it was easier just to set up, because I don't really have tech background and web design background. So I was able to kind of customize it myself, and you can also link it to your social media platform. So I do have shoppable posts on Instagram that then link to my Shopify.
And to learn how to build and get Shopify live, how much time did you invest in to make that happen?
I think the whole website it was stretched over probably a couple of months, but I could have condensed it into probably a couple of weeks.
Okay, and now you can manage it really easily.
Oh yeah, and it's really easy. You've got the analytics in the background. It's really easy to use.
Fantastic. Hannah, what about yourself?
Yeah, I was just going to say Shopify and all the apps that come with it. So
Yeah.
something that works really well for us is Omnisend. So it's just it's a newsletter app, and it integrates with Shopify. And when you go on the website, you get a pop-up, and we do 10% off if you sign up to our newsletter, and that massively drives sales. So people get an automatic email, and then it welcomes them to pieces of the puzzle, and then they get a unique code which allows them to get 10% off. And that's been amazing for us. And then we try every week, we launch a newsletter talking about a new launch or a collaboration or a product or something, and or like a deal like free shipping. And that works really well for us.
Fantastic. Ayesha, anything to add on the tech?
Honestly, I'm not the most techie person. So for me, I built my website on Wix, and when I managed to figure out how to actually get an online shop on there, and then for the money to come, directly through, and I had to stop generating invoices manually, that was like a huge tech achievement for me. So any tech achievement, anything that I figure out is a big one for me. But yeah, I think just with tech, I think just not being afraid of it and just working within your ability, but pushing yourself.
And the reality is that there are so many free and cheap tools to get our ideas out into the world now that didn't even exist.
Yeah, and you can do it yourself if you take the time. You actually can do it yourself.
Exactly. A couple quick round of questions to wrap up. Question here: How did you price your products? Figuring out price. It's probably not a quick answer, but Ayesha, how did you work out your pricing?
A little bit of trial and error. I think with food, we have a bit of so we learn when you're catering that you have a price, you effectively charge like 2 times the ingredients costs. So that's something that I kind of benchmark with, but then that's what you would use for catering. So with a platter, which was different, it was a slightly different price. Trial and error, you speak to friends, families, you do Instagram polls, you say, this is our idea, this is what we're thinking of pricing at, is it high, is it low? You've also got to factor in delivery costs, because if you price something at £25, and if it's going to cost another tenner to get it there, that affects the overall price. And then you've also got to work out really, how much is each, in my case, ingredients going to cost, so I know that, I break it down to a slice of brie, that's 8p. So you've got to really do your costing perfectly. Then you've got to make sure you add your time on top of it. So you've got to price yourself competitively, but not to the point that you're making a loss, because then you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, interesting. Hannah?
Yes, similar to Ayesha. We price. I mean, we're quite expensive compared to other. I mean, we're very expensive compared to other jigsaw puzzles. But we're made in Britain. We use a cotton bag instead of a plastic bag, which is £1 extra. And we buy in small batch. So the unit cost for us is actually quite expensive compared to other jigsaws that are made in Europe, for example. So like our 500-piece jigsaw is priced at £30. And we have to consider also the fact that if we're selling to a stockist, they're wanting 50% margin. Not on the high street, they take 25%. So all these third-party marketplaces, we have to take into consideration their commission, and we make a loss on post. We send everything 48-hour tracked, but we only charge £1.99. So it's you're not buying a puzzle that's £30, and then you're also charged £4.75 on top, because that's ridiculous. So we do take a cut on the post as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thanks for sharing. Roshan, what about pricing?
Yeah, I echo all what Ayesha and Hannah said. So I basically work out the cost per unit, and then I basically go through what I've done a lot of competitor analysis. Okay, so this brand charges this much. I would be happy to pay this much, because I know that the gloss we use is like cold pressed, high quality ingredients, and you kind of balance it. That's how I balance it up.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And essentially you've described the 3 ways, the classic 3 ways. So if anyone's listening in, there's 3 ways to approach pricing. One is you go product based, which is like exactly as we've just heard. You work out what the thing is going to cost, the unit costs, and so on, and then you add a margin on top. The second is you look at the market, what the competitor's charging. Can I just go below them or just above them? How far above could I stretch with my extra added value? And the third, and those 2, you've all used them, and effectively by the sounds of it, and that's very common. But the third way, which you just mentioned, Roshan, which is potentially the most powerful but the hardest to execute, is thinking about the value to the customer, like which often is it's more emotive, it's less based on facts and data, and it's around this sort of like, well, and I think, Hannah, you kind of alluded to it there. It's like, well, yeah, we are a lot more expensive, but your position is different, as all of yours are. Your position is different, and the value therefore to that customer in that moment is £30. That's absolutely fine. £30 is fine because I'm getting this amazing experience. And so for anyone thinking about pricing right now, I would always encourage, and these are great examples, I always encourage you to like start high, basically. Start high, and you're going to discount anyway. You're going to have partners and so on, third parties to sell through. But if you start high, you can come down. If you start low, it's really hard to push it up. I've learned that the hard way, so I thought I'd pass that on. My final quick question to the three of you, and thank you. This has been so, it's been wonderful talking to you, and you've given me so much. You know, I've been in this game for 20 years. You just given me a load of confidence and energy, and I know all the tricks, but you're demonstrating you're doing it, and it's really inspiring, and you're making a difference to people. And my final question is like, who else is doing it brilliantly? Can you recommend a brand or a startup or an individual who you really admire, who's doing something really cool right now, that you'd love people to hear about?
Yeah, mine would be, I've recently connected with an entrepreneur. Her name is Amma, and she is the founder of a wellness brand called This Is Planted. And at the minute, they specialize in like hair care products. And just seeing her journey, she also launched in lockdown. She launched back, I think it was in July, and she's gone on to, make crazy numbers, and the amount of people that she's helped like have had long-term like hair growth issues is just incredible. So I would definitely say check out Amma of This Is Planted. This Is Planted.
Someone look at that in the chat quickly. Thanks, Roshan. Hannah, have you got someone to spotlight?
Well, I was going to say, I think they call it South London Maker Market, and they started out as a physical market for independent businesses, small businesses, and then when lockdown happened, they went online, and they now do virtual markets on Instagram, and it's been crazy how well they've done and how many small businesses they support and champion. And they do IGTV live, so they interview people like the makers, and I think they've done really well. And definitely check them out if you've got a small business, like a product business. You can apply for their kind of regular markets through Instagram.
Give us the name once more, Hannah.
They're called a South London. I think their Instagram is a South London Market. Is that right?
South London Makers Market.
Makers Market. Yeah.
Quick, look it up quickly and drop it in the chat now.
Okay.
Aisha, who do you want to spotlight?
So I was going to spotlight a South London Makers Market because they actually raised £3,500 for Vital Meals. They did a raffle for us because I've sold through their platform as well. So really recommend them. But the other person, I'll spotlight a guy called Michael Brennan, and he runs a company called Toot Toot, which is an app for children. It's an anonymous app for kids to report bullying at schools. And I've just admired him from the beginning, and I think that the work they do is amazing, and just having a place for kids to be able to, having a safe space for kids to be able to go to if they don't know who else to turn to, or they don't want to, speak to a teacher, or they want to have that anonymity. I think it's an incredible app. So yeah, Toot Toot, Michael Brennan, and a South London Makers Market.
Wow, there's 2 for 1 there. Toot Toot is the one is Aisha's rec. If you would like to connect with Ayesha, Hannah, and Roshan directly, you can quickly tap on their names and message them. They may not want you to because they've got so much. No, of course they do. You can connect with them and support them and buy from them, and share what you're doing as well. Thank you so much, all of you, for a really fantastic conversation and stories. It's so inspiring. It's always inspiring talking to startup founders, but especially in the context of where we are now. And it's more important than ever that we build businesses that solve real problems in the world, and you're all doing that brilliantly. So thank you. We wish you all the luck.